Is it? It's working. I think. Maybe. Hopefully. Man, I hope I didn't screw it up there. Loading that up. Well, I did a test. I'm gonna insert the test right here. Testing. Testing. 7th expansion. Mangagame.com. Higurashi when they cry, Kai. This is my right microphone, huh? Well, start, continue, config. There's not even extras. I guess they probably unlock it later on, I don't know. But that was a test. You know, just because why the hell not? It's like only like 40 odd seconds long. Just to test that this Xbox thingamabob, I already forgot what it's called. It's an inbuilt capture card. And it seems to work. It's just a little confusing, because it's pretty much just like, okay, here's just like, oh, do you want to use the microphone in it and whatnot? And then it's like, oh, use the record button. And it's a bit confusing despite its simplicity, you know? Anyways, it's been, I don't even know how long, because, my god, I have no idea. It's been like, I think it was 2018 maybe when completed the previous arc. So it's been a while for Higurashi, and it's been a while since recording for the BN channel, like nearly half a year. But this is Higurashi When They Cry, Kai, you know, Answer Arc, Chapter 7, Minagoroshi. Or Minagoroshi, whichever. Oh, there we go, guys. You could probably make it full screen now that I think about it, because the window just kind of feels a bit small here. You're gonna see the final truth. No, it's not the final truth. I mean, it is, kind of. It's, I'm only gonna record one part, by the way, in this record session, because, you know, I don't know. It's like, in the update video I don't think I mentioned one of the other reasons I've been putting it on hold was because, like, it's just been a clusterfuck with recording and all that and feeling burnt out and stuff like that. It's like, on the main channel, I've completed the White Day LP, but it's still uploading parts because it's still, you know, recorded in advance. So I'd, like, completed that. And I also did the After LP talk for it, which was an absolute bitch to edit and put together in shortcut, I gotta say, because, man, that was a clusterfuck. If you didn't see the update video, I'm using a different laptop now because old one's hard drive started to fail, so I'm pretty much starting with new equipment here for, like, this. Well, same old for the most part when it comes to recording the capture card, you know? But it doesn't quite work here that way, so I have to use this inbuilt one here. And what else? What was I rambling about? I hate when I go on a ramble within a ramble, so I forget what the hell I was even talking about to begin with. Backtrack a bit. Yeah. Oh yeah, so, like, completely the White Day LP, I was like... And then that just leaves a new LP that I'd started a while back, Rune Factory Oceans. And recording for that is be the only LP currently going on there, other than Final Fantasy X, which is still kind of in a state of limbo, you know, with that super boss and shit. Being a pain in the ass, and being a pain in the ass to set up the record for the PS2 as well, for that matter. And it's just like, oh, and then the idea of starting this LP right here now. It's just, but anyways, Massacre Chapter. This story introduces the unit inside and out using all the actors. This is no longer a story. It's a public autopsy for all to join. As they say after loving someone, cut open their belly and eat their organs. It's the same with stories. The difficulty is quite mild. Well suited for those with pride. What the fuck even was that? It's like, well, you know what they say about, after loving someone, you gotta cut their belly up and eat their organs. Tradition. Yeah, that's the classic old corpse party right there, isn't it? That's the corpse party we know and love. Just like comedy one moment and then absolutely fucked up the next. This one is gonna reveal a lot of plot though. Like a lot of plot points are going to start to make sense. By the end of this, all will be revealed. It is, after all, it said like the truth or some shit. But it's not the final answer arc. Now there's one after this. This is pretty much gonna be like the one that reveals everything. But it's not going to be the final chapter necessarily. Well, obviously, because it's a chapter 8. What are you doing? I don't see you playing by yourself that often. All you could do before was to nod to my questions. Since when do you have your own will? I'm glad. I finally have a sister or a brother, whichever you are. I used to be an experience of nothingness, just like you. But one day I began to have my own identity, my own thoughts, and eventually my own body. So it's not a surprise to see you in possession of your own will. Welcome to this vast yet tiny world, my sister. You might be my brother, but let me call you my sister until I know for sure. This is an endless, eternal, and infinite world, but that doesn't mean it's boundlessly vast. I suppose you could describe it like a ring with a small diameter. While the ring is an eternal, endlessly looping world, that doesn't mean it contains infinite space. Yes, in short, this world is eternally sealed. The future is supposed to be an infinite weave of countless choices. Yet for whatever reason, our world always ends in death. If I were to compare it to something, perhaps a maze of fate would be appropriate. Looping through the same moments forever, steadily grows harder and more dejecting, eventually producing something like me. And as that draws further on, even one like you is born, and eventually this world may be filled with your sisters too. After that, we'll build a colony inside of it. Once we lose our interest in this maze, Rika Furude will disappear from this world. Yeah, it's like, this arc is gonna be primarily told through Rika's perspective, but this clearly doesn't seem to be from Rika's perspective right off the bat. So it's like, so who's this character? Who's babbling on here with their thoughts or whatnot? It looks like you still cling to this narrow world, Rika, though I lost interest long ago, which is why I'm truly glad you were born for me to talk to. So what are you doing? Are you collecting fragments of memory? There's only 5 or 6 of them right now. It must still be fun for you, though. Why, is it like in reference to the other arcs? That's a nice effect there, seeing all the characters just in that. It's like it's exactly what it's saying. It's like fragmented memories here that's clatched onto. It must be referencing all the other arcs up to this point, because there are 6 other arcs up to here. But there used to be more fragments long ago, but one by one they disappeared into the darkness. Now these are the only ones that remain clear. Yeah, I think that's alluding to the fact that this whole thing has been looping a lot more than 6 times. But the ones that have been in the series that we actually get to see, those are the ones that are still remaining clear. All the other ones have just grown distant in memory and stuff like that, it seems. Oh, that's not how you're supposed to use it. See? Try and hold it up to the light. All of that is the life of Rika Furude and its end. That one is... Oh, I remember that one. That's the world when Keiichi was cursed. Those fragments are like books to me, so I titled that one the Onikakushi chapter. You were the one who named the chapters, Dan. I can't even say the character's name yet, because they'd be spoiling. But, well, we'll get to see the character soon enough, surely. Do you remember what happened in that one? Good. That makes things easier. In Onikakushi, Keiichi Maibara was consumed by the darkness. He couldn't accept the kind words his friends offered him and eventually beat them to death, not knowing of their kindness. We were all killed after that anyway. That had nothing to do with his story, though. Yeah, that's something that happens in most, if ever, well, it'll probably get explained right here. That fragment is the Watanagashi chapter. Shion Sonozaki was cursed in that one. She killed many people out of revenge for her boyfriend's disappearance as he went missing in 1982. This is just a recap with some extra information, really, isn't it? Rika worked so hard, but she was captured at the end and she was tortured to death. That's why she chose to commit suicide in the Minagoroshi chapter, because things were going to turn out the same way. Wait, does that imply that the Watanagashi and Minagoroshi chapters aren't the same? Like, just told from a different perspective? They just play out similar? Or is it... That's a bit confusing, because if that's the case, that's a bit weird. Because I'd always kind of... I mean, I've read these novels, but it was years ago since I read through them all, you know. But I always kind of thought Minagoroshi and Watanagashi were literally played at the exact same thing, because it's the exact same scenario. It's just told from Shion's perspective in the Minagoroshi arc. So I kind of assume that they both play at the same time. It's just like... Maybe it really is just like that, but it's just told from that perspective. It's like it's not revealed in Watanagashi that Rika, you know, kills herself rather than, you know, be tortured to death by Shion. We don't actually get to see that because we don't see Shion's perspective, and we don't even know it was Shion in Watanagashi. It was all, like, vague and shit. And then it goes on to Minagoroshi and it's all revealed, and yeah. This is pretty much spoiling all the arcs that came before, so if you're just like want to avoid spoilers for all the arcs that came before this is not the arc to watch. That fragment over there is called the Higurashi chapter. Satoku's uncle came back and locked her up inside her house. That was the worst world of all. There was nothing Rika was able to do in that world. Whenever Satoku's uncle comes back, Rika usually just gives up on that world. Fortunately, Satoku's uncle doesn't come back that frequently. Yeah, that's an implication that his worlds... This scenario just loops over and over and over and over again. But, you know, like it says there, that scenario isn't very common. That one is called the Suzumori Horoboshi chapter. Rika was there until just a moment ago. By a moment ago, it was like freaking nearly 2 years by now since I recorded that one. Rena Ryuga was possessed in that world. I find it weird how they go on about that. They went like, okay, question arc, answer arc, and then answer arc again. I think, no, actually, no, they didn't do an answer arc again after that. They went to the question arc, and now they're going to an answer arc. That's confusing. It should have gone like Onikakushi, and then the, that was the previous arc, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. But that was this one was the answer arc to Onikakushi. So you'd think they'd like be in order, but I guess not. It's just, the recap's a bit odd. Rena Ryuga was possessed in that world. It was pretty exciting to see her take over the whole school with those terrifying eyes. It surprised me to learn that Keiichi Maibara had a memory of the other worlds just like we do. Yes, he's special because he was the original protagonist, so he somehow has some kind of fragmented memory somewhere stored in the back of his mind there. It was pretty amazing, but then again, most of us have some kind of memory like that. We all have an imaginary world within us, some idea of what would have happened if you did things differently. It's like a strange feeling you get when you do something for the first time, but it feels like you've done it before. Everyone has a memory of an imaginary world in their mind, but the memory is not always that clear. It's not surprising, really. You are special enough to be able to see those fragments of memory. It's probably very difficult for you to understand how special you really are. I guess we're gonna skip over the fourth question arc. Maybe, because I guess that one took place at least a couple of years before the events of, the Higurashi story, because that was like a prequel of sorts of the events, introducing like that detective Akasaka guy, and he just like befriends Oishi and all that, and he's just like trying to resolve like what's going on here with this damn project stuff. So, you were born into a world where it's a natural thing for you to see these fragments. I was originally born in a normal world. I didn't know until recently that I could collect these fragments of memory. You grabbed those fragments just because you could, but I didn't know how to do that for a long time. I'm sorry. I'm sure you're not interested in hearing my story. Huh? What's wrong? What are you curious about? Oh? You're curious as to why so many different instances occur in the same world? It's very interesting, isn't it? Why do you think that's the case? Let's think about it together. Thinking is the first step towards playing a game. The main character among Rika's group of friends is Keiichi Maibara. Well, he was the main character up until the answer arcs. Then he kind of became a regular character because the perspectives changed. In Onikakushi, was possessed by suspicion and killed Ren Ryugu and Mion Sonozaki. Onikakushi has to be one of the most impactful arcs. Well, they're all pretty impactful, but for the very first one, you go into it either blind or knowing a bit about it. But either way, you just go through it, you get that intro where it's like, oh, something's definitely gonna go down later on. But then they just throw you into this really happy atmosphere, and it stays that way for the longest time. And then suddenly, it starts to gradually get darker as Keiichi's paranoia grows, and then it just like grows and grows, and then shit hits the fan, and it's like, damn. If that was an inevitable event, he would be killing them in every world. In other words, what Keiichi Maibara did in Onikakushi was not inevitable. Indeed, the only thing that's inevitable is Keiichi Maibara's role. If Keiichi Maibara was someone with a naturally suspicious heart, he would take the same actions in every world. But that didn't happen. It's true that Keiichi Maibara is both passionate and easily convincing of anything, but it's rare for him to exhibit the kind of rage he displayed in Onikakushi. In other words, even though something might seem inevitable in one world, that may not be the case if you compare it to a different one. If something really is inevitable, it will happen for sure in every life. That's what true inevitability is like. It's very important that you know that. When you compare the different worlds, what's common among all of them is truth. Understand? Like I said, what seems inevitable in one life could just be a random event in another. The club activities that Mion Sonozaki suggests are a good example. If Mion Sonozaki had a strong inclination towards playing certain games, he would be playing them in every world. But in reality, you participate in different activities in most of them. Yeah, but it always seems to be a different game each arc. That means that the games they play in the club are randomly decided by Mion Sonozaki. We know that now because we've been through many different lives. Those who only live in one world can't see if the event in question is inevitable or random. Those who only live once can't predict what's going on in Mion Sonozaki's mind, but we can. Although the activities are random, Mion Sonozaki calls us together for the club meeting almost every day in every life. I can see that Mion Sonozaki holds a strong will towards having the club meeting. Mion Sonozaki always wants to play with the other club members, but she doesn't know what to play. See? We can read Mion Sonozaki's mind just by simply examining these fragments. With this alone, we can see part of who Mion Sonozaki really is. Let me talk a bit about Keiichi Maibara. For those who only live once, the world of the Onikakushi chapter is nothing but a story where Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death. It's like it's... It seems like it's, in a way, saying it's like, yeah, if you only play the Onikakushi one and just ignore the rest of the series, it's just like, yeah, that's pretty much the whole story, you know? Keiichi suffered mysterious hallucinations and beat his friends to death, and that was it. But that wasn't quite all it, because it's a part of a series. And, like, the longer the series goes on, the more you start to, like, realize that, hey, wait, it seems like the stories are looping. Is it just stories that are just like... Is it like an episode of South Park kind of thing, where it's like episodes don't necessarily need to be, you know, continuing on from the previous one. They just, like, you know, have the same characters and similar scenarios play out. But no, they're all interconnected because it is looping. But why, is the question. For them, there's nothing beyond that fact. We, however, can compare different fragments and find out something they could never see. As a result, we know that the murder of his friends was not inevitable. I told you that just earlier. In fact, while there are about 5 or 6 pieces in front of you, he only killed his friends in one of them. That means we can roughly conclude that the possibility Keiichi Maibara triggers a tragedy is less than 20%, and is almost a fluke. This means that amongst the countless worlds Keiichi Maibara caused in the tragedy is an unimportant factor. You know, there is like something to that arc, Onikakushi. I'm sure it's gonna be alluded to, or at least, you know, mentioned in this arc. But I won't spoil it, but there was a reason for him, you know, snapping like that, and why he was, you know, ended up so paranoid. The reasoning hopefully will get explained in this arc, because this is the ultimate answer arc. It's like, this is the ultimate answer arc, and the final arc is like the full conclusion of the story kind of thing. Now, can you find the common thread to be drawn from here? My, you've found it already? No wonder you were born in this world. You're quick to learn the knack for playing with building blocks. I didn't figure that out for a while. I was born in a normal world, so I could only see things from a single world perspective. I was too obsessed with the fact that Keiichi Maibara caused a tragedy, so I had trouble finding it. Right, that's exactly right. You see it. The Onikakushi, Watanagashi, Meakashi, and Samura Araboshi chapters all have something in common. Someone in the group becomes violent because of dark and paranoid thoughts. In each world, either Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, or Ren or Ryugu become violent as their delusions grew stronger. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Ren or Ryugu are all my close friends, but they all were born and raised differently. The only common factor is that they all live in Inamizawa. It's like, and Ren and Ryugu are all my close friends. So have we switched to Rika now? It's just like, if so, it's just kind of like, because we don't see any like indication like of who's actually talking here. I just said it not too long ago though, and it's not like I'm trying to put on the voice of Rika. I can't even remember what the Rika voice was. It was like, I know, I'd have to see her character portrait on screen, because like for some reason, like if I see the character on screen as the dialogue shows, that helps significantly for me to remember how I did the voice for them. It's like I see the expression and like voice act accordingly kind of thing. Otherwise, if it's just a black screen like this, I'm just like, I just said it not too long ago, though. When we peer through those fragments of multiple worlds, the constant phenomena become our facts, and the chance phenomena hold little meaning. In other words, the unrelated individual culprits are not all that important. To go further, the violence of their crimes also bears no meaning. Keiichi Maibara beat his friends to death. Shion Sonozaki killed the central people of the three families, and Ren Ryugu took over the school. They were all different. There's nothing in common there. In fact, the very, very important truth is that while the culprit and crimes are decided at random, their process of growing paranoid until they resort to violence is always constant. The suspect changes every time, but the process does not. It's like a game of Cluedo. Well, not really. After comparing the different worlds, this is the truth I found. This is one truth that is common to all the worlds of Hinamizawa. The rule is that a random person becomes violent under the influence of paranoid thoughts. This is Rule X. Keiichi Maibara, Shion Sonozaki, and Ren Ryuko. Pieces with no particular connection have the potential to succumb to that rule with random probability. I don't know what the probability is that those pieces will be ensnared by that rule. Perhaps there is some rule to that too. Is it because these three are all close in age? Or is it because they all live in Hinamizawa? Well, we're not detectives or police officers. This is not something that a small girl like us, Rika Furude, can easily figure out. At least we know that there's a mysterious rule in the world of Hinamizawa. This is like, I think, I know what this is, what's going on here with this scene. But if you've never, seen the Higurashi series or read the novel yourself, you're just probably like, is it Rika talking to herself or something, or what's going on? Because it clearly seems like either Rika is talking, or someone else is talking, and it's like, what? What's going on? Kind of thing, But all in due time, what kind of blows my mind is that in Onikakushi and Watanagashi, in both arcs, Mion was suspected as being this sinister character, but it was like, in Onikakushi, it was Keiichi's paranoia, and in Watanagashi, it was actually Shion. So, out of all of the characters, Mion is the one who never actually went completely batshit insane and killed anyone. It's like the only one of them, aside from, Rika and Sadako, because, that would be an interesting arc, but, yeah, that hasn't been something we've actually seen, really, is it? But it's just been like Rena, Shion, and Keiichi. People who live in one world have no way of knowing that. And I don't know the mysterious rule, and well, I did already that. I'm proud of myself for figuring that out. I guess for you, it's not particularly surprising, though. What did you say? That's right. If something is common among all worlds, that means it's fated to happen. Some events quickly come to mind, don't they? Right, Jiro, Matake, and Miyotakano are always killed in those worlds. That is a constant pattern there. On top of that, they are murdered in exactly the same way in every world. In other words, unlike our previous rule with its variability, their murders are thoroughly planned out by someone with a strong will. So that does not fit with the mysterious, vague Rule X that leads a random individual to violence. After all, they are always murdered regardless of who follows Rule X. Therefore, there's another rule to these worlds. A rule that says Jiro, Tomitake, and Miyotakano will get killed on the night of Watanagashi. Let's call it Rule Y. Don't you see how funny this is? It's funny, they keep dying all the time, hooray! Jiro, Tomitake, and Miyotakano are killed in every world, right? Every time the character who gets cursed always thinks that their deaths have something to do with the danger that's awaiting them. The fact that someone turns violent, Rule X, and Jiro, Tomitake, and Miyotakano's death, Rule Y, are supposed to be two independent rules, but they all tend to link them together. Of course, one could say that's how they become ensnared in the spell of paranoia leading to them to the violence to begin with. But do you think in their paranoia that they notice someone is trying to lead them to link these rules together? Yes. Whoever the piece leading them is, they are the one making this stage called Hinamizawa very complicated. You should have noticed at least two suspicious people. Do you know who I'm talking about? That's right. I'm referring to Kuroda, Oishi, and Miyotakano. When you compare our previous fragments, the roles of the piece known as Kuroda Oishi becomes clear. He's a detective who is retiring this year, and he's in a hurry to solve the mystery of the series of deaths in Inamizawa. After he retires, he'll have to move away from the village. That's why he's desperate to solve the case before he has to leave Inamizawa. Why is he so obsessed with the serial murders in Inamizawa? That's right. It's because of the first murder involved in the manager of the construction site. The victim was Oishi's close friend. You will see that if you look at the Himatsubushi chapter. That was chapter 4. Oishi was there when the dam conflict was at its peak. He saw how the Sonozaki family took control of the Onagafuchi Guardians, and he believed that the Sonozaki family was pulling the strings behind the whole incident. That's why he always suspected that the Sonozaki family was behind the series of mysterious deaths, regardless of the evidence or lack thereof. His personal biased belief, combined with his credibility as a police detective, affected the pitiable victims of sections, complexes in each world. Complexes. As a result, the pitiful victims of Rule X come to accept the Sonozaki family as the identity of the unknown force their paranoia seeks. I mean, that's what happened with Keiichi. Shion Sonozaki's case was the most conspicuous one in that matter. Yeah, I guess so. So yes, if this piece Oishi didn't intervene, then perhaps the victims of Rule X wouldn't have resorted to such violence. So the role his species played is to indirectly cause the tragedy. I don't know who named him this, but Oeshira-sama's servant is the perfect nickname for Oishi. The other suspicious person is Mio Takano. One would assume the only role of her piece is to amuse herself with research into Onagafuchi's dreadful history, and to take pleasure in scaring others with those tales. However, just like Oishi, she also gives them the idea that the Sonozaki family is behind all the mysterious incidents that happen in the village. She interfered the most with Rena Ryugu. For Mio Takano, Rena Ryugu was the perfect prey, grasping at straws to try and identify the force she suspected. Ironically, however, Mio Takano always ends up getting killed at the end. If she had survived and seen Rena take over the school, she would have laughed long and loud. Now, have you realized that these two pieces and the roles they fulfill have their own rule too? They talk about the Sonozaki family, and the listeners always believe them. This is Rule Z, and what a humorous rule it is. You should already have an answer to this mystery in your fragments on hand. The fact is that the Sonozaki family always acts as if they are responsible, no matter if they are or not. They always pretend to be the villains in order to make sure that people continue to fear them. As a result, the villagers have believed that the Sonozaki family has been pulling the strings ever since the dam conflict ended. Kuroda Oishi and Mio Takano were simply fooled by that rule. Actually, the whole village is fooled by it. Still, the more I think about it, the stranger the series of mysterious deaths in Inamizawa seems to me. Do you know why? Nearly all of the fragments and memories we have here are from 1983, so I have no idea about the incidents from 1980 to 1982. But it's likely that interpreting these murders as serial is simply a result of falling victim to Rule Z, believing that the Sonozaki family is pulling strings behind everything. You know, it says that is like, no information for 1980 to 1982, but the fourth question arc was prior to 1983. Primarily, the arc took place before that. In short, they may be trying to conflate those multiple crimes, which each happened for different reasons, into one big case. Well, I have no way of discerning the truth from the fragments here. Still, perhaps something lies in one of them. Each case was supposed to have been solved individually after all. We don't know if that theory is sound or rational, but it might, surprisingly, be an element we can't ignore. That reminds us, Shion said something intriguing in the Minagoroshi chapter. That curse system she came up with. Do you remember that? Her theory was that the villagers believed that they are allowed to kill an enemy of the village on the night of Otanagashi in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse, and that this foundation of murder is allowed on that night alone is the true identity of the curse. Since most of the fragments here are from 1983, there's nothing to back the validity of Shion's theory, but there are still interesting things about it. In other words, her theory is that the suspect is not the one who's committing the crime. It's the environment that's causing the murder. Perhaps in a single world, tend to analyze a criminal's life, make people innocent, like to determine the process that led them to crime. But her idea is different. The real crime is committed not by the criminals, but by the environment. In other words, it may only be happenstance that robber A committed the crime, and the environment of poverty may have created robber B instead, or perhaps even robber C. It may not even be a criminal in another world. Therefore, the real criminal is not A, but the environment that creates A, B, or C. And well, while people in a single world may be able to reach such an idea, widespread desire to place blame commonly causes A to be lynched by society while the environment that gave rise to A goes ignored. Did I confuse you? I'm sorry. Perhaps that example was actually hard to understand for you. It's easy for me to see it like that because I'm from the normal world. Let me make it simple for you. The culprit behind the tragedy in many worlds isn't individuals like Keiichi Maebara or Shion Sonozaki, but the environment. So Rule X is the true culprit at fault. You're earning good marks if you can grasp that, even if we don't know the identity of Rule X. If you can grasp the three worlds governing this stage called Inimizao, Rules X, Y, and Z, then you're earning very good marks. So long as you understand those rules, then even if this is your first experienced world, you should easily find the truth without distraction. See? Isn't it fun? Merely three simple rules are interacting on this stage, creating a kaleidoscope of different worlds. This is probably a very unusual case. In all locations, you shouldn't be able to see such extreme variations even after looping through several worlds. It keeps me entertained just staying here and watching these worlds resolve. Anyway, there's one more fact we can understand from these fragments of worlds. This is the biggest problem we Rika Furudes are facing. Yeah, this is Rika right here. The fact that Rika Furude always dies each time. It's as if June 1983 is a dead end for her. Worse, there's no randomness to it. It's guaranteed to happen. In other words, it's the same pattern as the deaths of Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano. It follows the exact same rule, Rule Y. Tomitake, Jiro, and Takano Mio are always murdered on the night of Otanagashi. Frederica's date of death is not always the same, but she is always dead by the middle of June. Jiro Tomitake and Mio Takano are probably attacked on their way home, so that's why it always happens on the same night. But for Rika Furude, it's different. She takes different actions in every world, and her lifestyle is very unpredictable. For that reason, the day of her death is not always the same. However, she always dies in June, because a similar powerful conviction vows to kill her too. This has gone on forever, man, so can we assume that the same Rule Y killing them is also the rule behind her death? Is the same person killing all three of them? I don't know if it's the same person, but it's highly likely the same rule is at work. It is the same Is it the same person? Or the same organization? Is it the same views? The same goals? Rika's most important goal is to escape her deadly fate. But it doesn't mean that she just wants to leave the village and survive. She wants to live happily in the village. All of her friends must also be happy too. That's Rika's happy future, the ideal future she hopes for. It's tragic that we can't realize such a simple desire no matter how many times we repeat this. Though it's a tragedy we're only able to receive, because we're beings capable of comparing the fragments from different worlds. By the way, I have some interesting information. While Rika is almost always killed by Rule Y, have you noticed that she's killed by Rule X in some worlds? Right. It happened in the Watanagashi and Makashi chapters. Yeah, that was the one exception to the rule. Rika Furude committed suicide, but you can say she was more or less killed by Rule X via Shion Sonozaki in those worlds. In other words, this is a blunder for Rule Y. So it does acknowledge that Makashi and Watanagashi are the same arc, just different perspective if they say that she killed herself in both arcs. Rule Y is trying to kill Rika with a strong desire to achieve some aim, but she was killed before that as a result of unrelated Rule X. That might have caused them to show some disturbance. If Rule Y's objective is simply to bury Rika, then that's not a problem. But if they have some objective beyond that, then that might show up as some other phenomenon. Perhaps the Watanagashi and Makashi chapters have something in common. Well, yeah, because the answer arc and question arc to each other. Something that doesn't happen in the other worlds. Unfortunately, we're Rika Fruity, so we don't know what happens after Rika is dead. Or, by any chance, do you know what happens? Since I'm Rika Fruity, I only know events during Rika's life. You, on the other hand, are a special existence who was born in a superior world. Is there anything that didn't happen in the Watanagashi and Minagoroshi chapters that happened in all the other worlds after Rika's death? If you know anything, then that must be another truth behind Rule Y. I mean, I know the answer to that, but I'm not going to say it because that'd be a spoiler. The memories I have here are all mainly about the chaos brought out by Rika's friends, that is, Rule X. But its foundation, Rule Z, and the obvious hostility common among all worlds, Rule Y, are what I believe to be the true rules governing this stage. If so, then Rika's path is a thorny one. She needs to fight Rule Y in order to survive. Unless she defeats it, she has no future past June 1983. And to win her own happiness, she must also beat Rule X to win her friend's safety. Now I find it fitting then. You know, it takes place in June, and it's still it's like May 30th as I'm recording this. When I start uploading for this LP, this arc, it'll be June, so that's fitting. And to win her own happiness, she must also beat Rule X to win her friend's safety. So long as that's undefeated, one of Rika's precious friends may be led to tragedy. If that happens, then even should Rika survive, she wouldn't have the happy future she hopes for. She also may have to defeat Rule Z, just as Sonozaki... Wait, what? Sonozokai... That's a mistake. She unfaced it in Minagoroshi. So long as Rule Z remains, and even if she escapes 1983, it's possible another tragedy may lie waiting in 1984. It's extremely likely that Rule Z is the breeding ground for Rule X. It means our fundamental belief that the Sonozaki family is behind everything, and the custom that anything can be misconstrued as the curse, may indirectly be the root of all evil here. People are not surprised to see somebody die on the night of Watanagashi. You know, I wonder if this recorder is going to keep in sync for all this, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be very pissed off, because it'll be really hard to edit. That type of thing is keeping the curse alive in enemy's hour where it causes even more tragedy. It's Rule Z reinforcing itself. Did I read the previous one? People are not surprised to see somebody die on the night of Watanagashi. Rule X. Rule X is Y and Z. There are 3 rules that hunt Rika down in the eternal June of 1983 in this ridiculously long intro. They are all tough obstacles. We didn't even figure out these 3 common rules until recently. Were you aware of them? If you were, I'll give you straight A's. I've tried so hard in the past to break these rules, but I was never successful. However, a miracle happened in the Minagoroshi chapter. Keiichi Maibara was able to recognize a small fragment from another world by chance, and he beat Rule X. In the end, Rika was still killed that night by Rule Y, though. But still, one rule was defeated. That was a huge leap forward. Rika knew there were 3 common rules among the worlds, but she could never break any of them. If you remember in Samori Oroboshi, when Keiichi has that memory, you see Rika actually surprised by it. It's like, wait, you remember that? And later on in the arc, during the finale, the big showdown, she was pretty much because of Keiichi, going against these rules she had thought were established in her mind for these worlds, because he was able to break through that, she instead of giving up on that world, she had the strength, renewed strength to, just yeah, let's freaking save this shit. We're not gonna just let us be an unhappy ending here. Of course, it ultimately didn't matter in the end. Interruption is precisely why one of the other reasons why I was only gonna do one recording, one part. But this freaking intro drags on forever. But anyways, what was I saying? I can't even remember. Rika was in the final showdown in the previous arc, and she had renewed strength and motivation to try to save it. But in the end, she died anyway, due to... which rule was it? Was it rule X or Y? Or was it even Z? I think it was X, which is established here. The rule where, no matter what, she ultimately dies at the end, regardless. So, yeah, that kind of, yeah, it sucked. We can know there were club rules among the worlds, but she could never break any of them. Eventually she gave up and lost interest in the worlds. This scene goes on forever. That's how I was born. However, she's different now. She learned something valuable from Gage Barbara. The rules can be broken with a strong enough will to fight. If she can break all 3 rules, Rika Furude will be freed from her eternal prison. She doesn't have much time left, though. Now do I. I've got food, man. It's gonna go cold by this rate. Rika's traveled through many worlds. Her physical lifespan is not a problem, but her mental lifespan is getting shorter. Mentally, she's extremely old, and her soul is starting to turn into something different. Yeah, because she's lived through this shit so many times. She's still just a little girl, but she's got, like, a very aged mind as a result of how many times it's looped over and over. In the end, she'll probably lose the ability to experience singular worlds. She's already showing those signs, and eventually her memories from the parallel worlds will mix together, ultimately causing their derangement and the loss of Rika Furude's soul. Then she will disappear. That means that you and I are going to be left in this dark world. This world that doesn't even have any backgrounds. Fragments of our memories will gradually disappear and we will be left alone in eternal darkness. Eventually we will die. Rika Furude is aware of that. She knows that her mental lifespan is getting shorter and shorter. Hanyuu is also losing her powers. We have a name, ladies and gentlemen! She can't rewind through years of time like she used to. Her powers has decreased so much that she can barely rewind 1 month at a time. Actually, she can only rewind a few weeks. In the next world, she should only have about 2 weeks of time. Rika Furude is going to try and break all 3 rules in just those 2 weeks. Finally! I would know that it had read Rika Boon School. That character is, like, I hear connected to Rika somehow, but I'm not sure. I think it's a character that's actually in, what was it? Umineko or something, I think another series called Chapter 7, Minagoroshi. Jesus Christ, that was long. That was a long-ass intro. Higurashi, when they cry, kai. Motherfuckers. Intros go on for hours. Well, 40-odd minutes, at least. I mean, granted, I rambled a bit here and there, so no wonder why I went on a little longer than that. Are we done? Can we save the game? Where are we? Who are we? What are we? I felt no gravity in the darkness and lost all my senses as a result. Who are we? Where? Why? I banged my head on the floor with a dull thud. Seeing stars behind my eyelids, I curled into a ball while holding my head in pain. Are you okay? Did you get hurt? Rika, please say something. I don't know if it's Sadako here. I need people on screen, characters on screen to know who's talking. I had no idea why I was in this situation, but as soon as I heard their voices from the top of the cliff, I realized that I must have fallen. Or maybe it's not even, because they seem to be outdoors, so she's probably with her friends. I mean, Sadako is her friend, but I just kind of thought maybe she was at home at the time. Anyways, that's going to do for this recording. Hope you enjoy this LP. It's gonna take a while getting used to recording again for this, but whatever. I'll see you next time, viewers. See you next time.